Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join us for another season review. And we are going to look at Barnsley. Barnsley in the playoffs, how they did it. Now Barnsley has been a very fun story this season and definitely caught the imagination of the public. I put out a poll on Twitter after the playoffs were actually a lock. And an overwhelming number of people, the poll was, who do you think are going to win the playoffs? Voted for Barnsley. Now, of course, where football fans and polls and football fans and opinions are concerned, you normally get what would I like to happen or who is my favourite rather than what do I think is going to happen. But very much a sense at the moment that the people's champion is Barnsley. And I feel a bit sorry for Brentford and Bournemouth and Swansea, who they're up against. But a bit of a groundswell about this story at Oakwell this season having the most sensational ending. And Barnsley ending up in the Premier League. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how they got into the playoffs. But a lot of interest around the Tykes at the moment. Where do we start? I'm going to start with a man called Gerhard Struber. I don't want to go back too far, but for those uninitiated, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of Barnsley fans watch this, and they'll already know this, but for those of you who weren't following the Barnsley story back into last season, Barnsley came up, sold essentially their key players. They sold Kiefer Moore, Ethan Pinnock, Liam Lindsay, Davies, the goalkeeper as well. And then Daniel Stender was sacked and they took ages to replace him. And the man they replaced him with was Gerhard Struber, who was a very highly rated Austrian coach who seemed a very, very ambitious chap and seemed to like the idea of coming and working with Barnsley and just being in England. It was a bit of a coup when they got Gerhard Struber. There at the top of that slide is the league table. When Struber arrived, Barnsley, bottom of the league with 9 points from 16 games. And down at the bottom, there is the table by the final day of the season. Barnsley, you can add another 40 points on. So do your quick bit of maths there. 30 games and 40 points under Gerhard Struber, so well over survival form, which is normally a point per game. Remember, in a high tide season last season, so they escaped on the last day in injury time. Clark Adore scoring an injury time winner at Automatic Promotion Challenge in Brentford at that time. They won their last 2 games to get over the line. Yes, we do get plenty of comments saying, quote, Barnsley only stayed up because Wigan got deducted 12 points. Well, maybe Barnsley did stay up and Wigan got deducted 12 points. But I feel that's a little bit of a reductive argument because what Wigan's owners do with their club and their administration got to do with Barnsley. Them's were the rules, and Barnsley were 21st when everything stopped. So there you go. There are the players that Barnsley relied upon last season. We just want to pick out some familiar names. It's only really Collins, Anderson, Mowat, Woodrow, a bit, Chaplin, a bit, that the team has been built around this season. That is where we came from last season. So there was this idea that Barnsley had got this manager, Struber, highly rated, doing a good job. They're going to push on with Struber this season? No. This is Struber's exit. Look down at the bottom first and you'll see 4 games into this season, 1 draw, 3 defeats. And Struber goes. I'm going to do a gargantuan name drop here because I was at Reading Barnsley at the start of the season and I was in the press conference and I got to ask a question as well. And something didn't seem right with Struber then. they played quite adventurously against Reading, had 2 men sent off and lost. And Struber, just something didn't quite feel right at that point. He said on the 3rd of October, after I think they played Middlesbrough, if I'm right, I have other ambitions, aims, and I cannot feel that the owners have the same ambition and goals like me. My future is open, and we will see. So, I don't know. This New York job had come up. Struber had links with the Red Bull group and the Red Bull teams from his past. I think had he been a under-23s coach or a B team coach for them? I don't remember exactly how, but I know there's a link in there. And he went off to do the New York Red Bulls job. You're talking about the ambitions of the owners. I have to say, a lot of Barnsley fans were agreeing with him at the time in terms of sales and recruitments and whatnot. Have a look at the top there. So Jacob Brown was sold in the summer. Transfer Mark says around 2 million. Write them a strongly worded letter if you want to dispute any transfer fees. In the summer, in comes Herbie Kane, 1.25 million. Dominic Frieser, who I believe, who'd he worked with before? It wasn't Ishmael, was it? I think it might have been, actually. Pass on that one. Michael Hellick, Isaac Christy Davis, Jack Aitchison, Callum Britton, and Matty James on loan. So pre-Ishmael, look, Hellick, Britton, particularly important names coming in the summer. And so out goes Gerhard Struber, and in comes Valérien Ismaël. You can see they've jumped another couple of games. 2 games elapsed with no manager, basically, or in between the 2 caretaker bosses. And in comes Ismaël, a successful playing career, including a 2-year spell with Bayern, 45 years old, no stranger to working with and developing young talent, worked in the youth systems of Hanover and Wolfsburg. I'll admit, very much like Struber, I had to go and do my research. I hadn't heard of him before, but an interesting character with an interesting story. If you look into some of the European exploits there, I believe his team were kicked out of one of the tournaments or something of that nature. Go and watch my video when he arrived. It feels a long time ago and I can't quite remember. So in comes Ismaël, another European hire that a lot of us really focused in on English football hadn't heard of. How's he going to do? Very well. There is the start for Valérien Ismaël. Just going to wind back one page really quickly. So when he arrived, 6 played, 3 points. Up to Christmas, 22 played, 34 points. Incredible start by Ismaël. So 16 games, he's going to win 10 out of his first 16, which is incredible with the 1 draw in there. Just an outstanding start by Ismaël. And there was a sense that Struber had left it. There were some good players there. There was the makings of a team that was kind of incomplete but had potential. But Struber kind of wanted to go off and do the New York thing and fine, whatever. But that first 4 games didn't really represent the first 6 games what Barnsley had built up over the previous season with the recruitment through those 3 transfer windows. And Ismaël comes in and he really, really delivers going up to Christmas. There is the January transfer window. And as with most teams that have a good season, they tend to get the January window right, where you can maybe take a bit of money off the wage bill and bring in players that are going to make an impact. And there are 3 deals that make a very big impact. The first one there, Matty James returns to Leicester City. You're probably thinking, why have I included that? But I really like this because James was loaned, was there for the first half of the season. I thought him and Moa in central midfield, that's great. Really nice. They're winning games. I'm thinking he's a good part of this. And then Ismaël says, no, we cut that one short. We'd rather free up a bit of wages and focus on Ramal Palmer and Herbie Kane. And at the time, I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's lip service. Let's see how many games Ramal Palmer plays. Well, he's played most of them and become a bona fide championship central midfielder. I like that. He came in, he inherited a player on loan from a club who's third in the Premier League, and he said, nah, not for me. Let's play our own guys, which is tremendous from Ishmael. Carlton Morris comes in. He was on loan at MK Dons. Comes in from Norwich, who dropped money on Jordan Hugill as a kind of powerful striker this season. I wonder if they could have used Carlton Morris because he's looked pretty decent as well. And there's a big one. I don't want to contradict myself about we're going to use our own guys. And then there's another loanee come in. Daryl DK from the United States, from Orlando City. And I think anyone who's been following the Championship knows he's been hammering in the goals and made a really, really big impact up at Barnsley. It was, though, however, January jitters. I've done well there, haven't I? Not a good January. And, I mean, there is a caveat there. Look who they lost to. Lost to Norwich, Swansea and Watford, who at the time they played them were the top three in the division. A couple of draws there, Cardiff and Nottingham Forest. And so they're at Barnsley in the middle of the table. And I'm sitting there saying, okay, they got some good players. They've had some good results. But they haven't beat any of the top six teams. In the main, they're going to get their points from the teams in the bottom half. They're going to stay somewhere around the middle and develop as they go. That was my perception of what Barnsley were going to do this season at that point. But a turning point, an awakening for me, happened not long after that. Because you can see there, last game there, 30th of January, we're going to get a 2-week break and we're going to get Daryl DK arrive. And then, well, something rather magnificent then happens as we go to Valentine's Day. And I don't know about you, I did spend the evening with the missus on Valentine's Day, I promise. But we did a watch along. We did Brentford versus Barnsley. Now, Brentford at this point, I think they might even have been top of the league. 21 games, undefeated, having a really good go at Norwich. And they're going to play Ishmael's Barnsley, who we've seen there's been a 2-week rest period before this. And honestly, it was absolutely thrilling. And I watched it. Barnsley win 2-0, by the way. Barnsley scored fairly early, and I'm sitting there, and okay, they're pressing the hell out of them. They're getting men forward, and the fullbacks are up in their faces, and they're not giving them a second on the ball, and they've taken the lead. But Brentford will win in the second half. You know, Brentford had gone behind in lots of, I think 3 games before that, they'd gone behind and won. So I'm sitting there thinking, Brentford will come good. Barnsley going to run out of steam. Nope. 2-0 in the second half. And then the brilliant sight of the 3 forwards of Barnsley who've been pressing the hell out of Brentford all game. The Barnsley manager Ishmael just sticks another 3 forwards on, just takes them all out, and they go again. And it was mind-blowing, actually. It's a hell of a performance because we've seen Brentford take down many teams in the Championship, keep the ball, create a ton of chances. And Barnsley, as the numbers will show you there, if you look at the shot map and the XG, look at Barnsley, 2.13 to 0.85. And that was off something like 38% possession or something. And there is the team now. And contrast that to where we had been. Collins now. Hellick had arrived in the summer. Anderson was there last season, wasn't he? Solbauer, to be fair to Struber, was brought in during last season, wasn't he? Was he on loan first? Can't quite remember. Styles was already there. Britton had been brought in start of the season. Palmer promoted up by Ishmael. Moa, well, we'll talk about him in a minute with his contract and everything. And then Chaplin was there. Morris and DK had been added. So what we can say about Barnsley is, although we're going to give Ishmael all the credit in the world, this isn't all about him. If you look at how that team's formed, it's a few transfer windows and a bit of creative recruitment. And I say Valentine's Day is the turning point because look what happens next. The streak. By God, look at that. Win against Brentford, win against Blackburn, win at Bristol City, win against Stoke, win against Millwall, win at QPR, who are in good form actually as well, win against Birmingham, draw against Derby in one of the worst games I've ever seen, where Wayne Rooney pretty much, to counteract this innovative Barnsley style, just basically hoofed the ball both teams down the ground the whole match. It was quite the spectacle. Win at Bournemouth. There you go. They're beating the upper teams now, and win at Wycombe. 9 wins there in 10 games, including a 7-game winning streak to propel Barnsley with 9 games to go to 64 points. And yours truly, and many people watching the Championship, flitted from the end of January saying, okay, they've got some good players. It's a lot of fun, but they're going to finish in the middle, to, oh, okay, these might finish in the playoffs now. And this is at the same point where Norwich had a streak, Watford had a streak, Barnsley themselves obviously had the streak, Cardiff had a shorter one, and it had, kind of come off the rails a bit, and Bournemouth were just about to get into a big streak. So interesting goings on at the top, with Brentford and Swansea maybe just regressing a little bit, Reading too, and Reading going to be key in the end. So that was the setup. And here is the final push. Little bit of a tail off here. Look at that home defeat to Sheffield Wednesday. Key draw against Reading. Did not want to lose that game. Lucas Zhao missed an open goal, didn't he, in that one? And then, you've got to give him credit. Look at that. 4 wins in 5. Again, apparently they were quite flat against Coventry. I didn't see all of the game, just highlights. And maybe conceded a few chances against Rotherham and maybe got a bit lucky with the early goal. But still, 4 wins in 5 to push Reading, who then had that decisive draw with Swansea, out of the way. And with 2 games to go, all done. And I've gone from thinking, okay, they're all right, but they're not going to get in the playoffs, to, well, they're in there. Now, what can they do in the playoffs? Let's have a look at the summary of just a brilliant story from League One to just surviving from relegation in the first season to the playoffs in the next season, and what I think are the key strengths that Barnsley have exhibited here. So the first one there, don't be afraid to sell. Pinnock, Moore, Lindsay, Brown. I say this a lot when we talk about the Championship. Unless you have that lovely old parachute money, you've got to make up ground somewhere financially. You have to sell your best players. You just do in the Championship. We've given many examples. Mattheson, the season before Norwich went up. Wood, before Leeds went up. And Vieira. Brooks, before Sheffield United went up. You can run them off, honestly. Plenty of examples. Don't be afraid to sell. It's the other end then, after you've sold, and recruitment, and what I call a recruitment churn and a recruitment cycle. On the basis of it, it looked like they were selling too much, especially that first season when it was Kiefer Moore and Ethan Pinnock and Liam Lindsay and Davies the keeper. It's like your 2 centre-backs, your goal scorer, and your keeper all gone from a League One promotion. But they've backed their own recruitment and ability to replace, and they've done a jolly good job of it. Number 2 there, exploit creative markets. Austria, Denmark, Poland, League One, USA. Where are you going to go shopping? Be creative. DK, Orlando City, Hellick, Poland. Several players in from Austria. Can't remember which one came in from Denmark. It's not a Danish player. Someone will tell me in the chat. And then people like Callum Britton from Milton Keynes Dons. Carlton Morris was at Milton Keynes, sort of Norwich reserves. Essentially, it's all very creative, isn't it? It's not finding some out-of-contract Premier League players and trying to match their wages or what have you. It's a little bit more innovative than that, and they've found value, haven't they, for sure. Creative managerial hires, Stendel, Struber, Ishmael, it's the same thing, really, isn't it? And I think what they have done is they've managed to pick out ambitious, young European managers, and I'm sure the conversation's been had. Look, we'll get you to England, if you get us challenging in the Championship, you can move on and fulfil your ambitions, whatever you like. But let us be part of your kind of trajectory, and we'll both trend up together at the same time. And with Struber, okay, maybe his ambitions in the end saw him go off to New York, but they've then followed it up with Ishmael, and seems to be cut from the same cloth. And yeah, just very left field names for me I hadn't heard of, and seems to work very nicely, doesn't it? Sorry, I hate myself for even writing this, but managerial philosophical continuity. In simple terms, the managers do similar things, basically. So I'm not saying Struber and Ishmael play exactly the same way, but if you look at the handover, still 3 at the back, still essentially a front 3, still pressing with, maybe Struber's was pressing with triggers and being quite brave, whereas Ishmael's is that on acid, just press the hell out of everybody. But there was a definite lineage philosophically through the managerial choices. Forgive me, I don't know too much about Stendhal's work in League One, but particularly through those last 2, it does seem joined up thinking. You're not going from, I don't know, Marcelo Bielsa to Mick McCarthy, are you? Do you know what I'm saying? It's very full respect to both of those managers. Many ways to skin a cat, but you've got to have that joined up lineage. Be brave and disruptive. And I think those are our 2 words for Barnsley, really. Brave and disruptive. Look at the way they play. The back 3's on the halfway line, for God's sake. Watch the game against Bournemouth. Bournemouth nailed it in the home game at Oakwell, and I think beat them 4-0, didn't they? Or 4-1 or something like that. 3 defenders up on the halfway line. Wing-backs literally ahead of where most sort of wide midfielders would be for other sides. Just incredibly front foot, incredibly risky if you get it wrong, but they haven't been getting it wrong. If you look at the underlying numbers, they don't actually concede that many shots either, do they? So very brave and disruptive. Yeah, you know, they're quite happy to go toe to toe. And when you start to hear other managers talking about the way Barnsley play, you know that they're being disruptive in the right way, and they're getting in there. And speaking of bravery as well, go back to the Matty James thing. No, they're going to stick Ramal Palmer, who's a young guy. Trust him, get him in there. Same with Britton and Styles. Just let them go, for goodness sake, and let them play. And Morris obviously making the step up straight from League One, and DK straight from United States football as well. Bravery has been sort of key to all of this. There's no sense of, we're going to try and do our best, but we're going to be a bit cautious and hang in there. Bottom one there, consistency of team selection and tactics. The tactical side of that goes through from Struber to Ishmael with, some tweaks. It's not the same, is it? But, they're coming from a similar angle. The consistency of selection, though, every week I do reviews and I do previews, and I know it's going to be Collins, Walton in goal. I know it's going to be Solbauer and Hellick and Anderson, maybe sometimes Sibic. I know it's going to be Britton, it's going to be Styles, it's going to be Mowat, it's going to be Palmer. I know there's going to be 3 up the top, probably DK most times, Chaplin, Woodrow, Adebayo. I know exactly what I'm going to get. And when you get to that point and the muscle memory kicks in, even though opposition managers know what they're going to get, it's so well practiced and so well trained that, good luck going and stopping it. So that is my summary and my theorising and hypothesising on how Barnsley have managed to jump from League One into the Championship, just avoid relegation, and then shoot straight up the table, probably scuppering many people's pre-season predictions. Complete transparency here. We are recording just before 4 o'clock on Tuesday. So there is a game on Tuesday night. I'll probably get this video up tomorrow. Brentford and Rotherham. So Brentford may have solidified 3rd place a bit more by then. But essentially, Barnsley have 2 games in hand. They're guaranteed to be in those playoffs. And if you've watched my streams, you will know I fervently disagree with the notion that the playoffs are a lottery. I do agree that, you can get the odd surprise result in the playoffs, but Barnsley are in there on merit. They have signature victories already at Brentford and at Bournemouth. However, do remember that big Bournemouth win at Oakwell as well. So some water under the bridge with each of the teams. It's going to be fascinating. What we will say is, in a season where the top 2 places have already been taken by a year 1 parachute team, both of them, and we've got the 3rd year 1 parachute team, Bournemouth, also in the playoffs, and at a time where perhaps the narrative around football is about inequality of wealth distribution and maybe entities like the Premier League swallowing up all of the money and trying to keep it for themselves. In this time, this story for Barnsley is important, isn't it? Look, if they lose in the semis, if they lose in the final, fine. But this is the antidote to everyone banging their head against a brick wall when they hear the Juventus owner or some, faceless American billionaire talking about money, etc., and the money pit when you see Barnsley storming up the league. And for those of you who want to put a silly comment in saying, oh, Barnsley have got money in the background, you try spending it in the Championship with an FFP limit of 13 million a year, whilst 3 clubs get 45 million in the first year, which is good FFP money that you can spend. So I don't buy that for 1 second. And you look at their profit and loss and their recruitment and tell me that Barnsley have, taken advantage of having wealthy owners in the Championship. It's not an argument that you can win with any evidence whatsoever. Sorry, getting grumpy now, aren't I? So what I'm saying is big thumbs up to Barnsley. Well done. Disruptive, brave, innovative. Good luck to them in the playoffs. They may make it. They may not make it. But they've had a great crack at it this season. And they've shown a blueprint for other Championship teams that if you do those things we mentioned on that slide and you're creative, you get a recruitment churn, you're brave, you're disruptive, you can find yourself 3 games away, potentially from the promised land, 100 million quid TV money in a season in the Premier League. So it can happen. Let me know what you think in the comments. That is Barnsley in the playoffs. How they did it. Do get involved. If you're a Barnsley fan, let me know what you think and give me your input. If you support any other team, get involved, because it is quite a fun story to non-Barnsley fans and non-Championship fans, frankly, as well. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And it's a big over and out from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.